"Do not drink the hydro." The order had echoed for centuries, etched into every child's memory as the first rule of survival. Hydro, the shimmering silver-blue liquid that glowed even in the darkest night, was not water, not fuel, not life. It was death, or so they were told. Whole histories of cities wiped out, villages turned to dust, and rebels vanished without a trace, all tied to that one element. The mere sight of a droplet spilling on the ground sent soldiers scrambling to secure it. To touch it was madness. To consume it was suicide. But tonight, in the dimly lit chamber of the resistance bunker, one man prepared to break the oldest law humanity had left. Dr. Kael Vera was not a reckless fool. He was a scientist, the last remaining one brave, or perhaps broken, enough to question the stories carved into stone tablets and repeated by trembling elders. To him, fear was a prison and Hydro was the key. For years he had studied fragments stolen from government vaults, droplets siphoned from broken containers, whispers hidden in forbidden scrolls. And his conclusion had shredded him with equal parts terror and awe. Hydro was not a weapon. It was something else, something waiting. Around him, the air smelled of rust and desperation. Dozens of resistance fighters huddled in silence, their shadows quivering under the weak hum of light strips. They were not warriors by choice but survivors. Farmers, miners, broken soldiers, mothers who had buried too many children. Their eyes clung to Kael, desperate for a miracle, fearful of witnessing a martyr's last breath. "You know what the council says?" muttered Darren, a scarred veteran who had seen too many executions. His voice cracked against the stone walls. "No one who drank it ever lived to tell the tale." "Exactly," Kael replied, his hand hovering over the vial that pulsed like a heart. "No one lived, or no one was allowed to." His words cut through the silence, and something shifted in the air. A dangerous seed of doubt. The resistance was built on questions, and this was the most dangerous question of all. Kael lifted the vial, its glow splashing against his weathered face. The light danced in his eyes, and for a fleeting moment, he didn't look like a man. He looked like a prophecy. The story said Hydro had been gifted to Earth centuries ago, dropped from the sky by conquerors who claimed dominion over humanity. They used it as both weapon and warning, destroying nations who resisted and sparing those who obeyed. The council, now nothing more than puppets, preached the old command: obey, never touch, never drink. But Kael saw patterns others ignored. Why destroy with Hydro when simple fire and steel sufficed? Why guard it so fiercely, as though hiding a treasure in plain sight? Because Kael believed Hydro was never poison. It was power. His fingers trembled as he uncorked the vial. The liquid rippled, whispering against the glass like a living thing, as though it knew it was moments away from rewriting history. Gasps erupted from the crowd. A mother clutched her son. Darren drew his weapon, his eyes wild with fear. "Don't!" he barked. "We need you alive, Kael. We need your mind." Kael gave him a sad smile. "You don't need my mind. You need proof. And tonight I will give it to you." Before anyone could stop him, Kael tilted back his head and poured the Hydro down his throat. The reaction was instant. The bunker shook as though the earth itself convulsed. The vial shattered, its glow bursting into a storm of light that poured into Kael's body. His veins lit up, glowing like rivers of molten silver beneath his skin. His eyes rolled back, his chest heaving, as though caught between suffocation and resurrection. "Kael!" Voices screamed, some in horror, some in awe. Soldiers rushed forward, pulling him back, but none dared touch him. The heat radiating from his body burned the air, making it impossible to stand too close. For one agonizing minute, he convulsed on the ground. The light flickered brighter, then vanished. Kael lay still. The silence was unbearable. Some cried. Others muttered prayers. A boy turned his face away, unwilling to see another corpse sacrificed to hopelessness. Then Kael's eyes opened. They were no longer the eyes of a man. They blazed with an otherworldly fire, a depth of power that silenced the room. His breath came slow and steady, The glow in his veins pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. He rose to his feet, taller, stronger, and when he spoke, his voice reverberated with something far older than himself. They lied to us. The room erupted, half recoiled in terror, half surged with hope. Kael raised his hand, and the air around it rippled like water, bending the light itself. He clenched his fist, and stone cracked beneath his boots. Darren dropped his weapon, his mouth agape. Impossible! Not impossible, Kael whispered, though the whisper carried like thunder. I can feel it. The Hydro is not here to kill us. It's here to change us. A murmur ran through the bunker. Fear, disbelief, the first sparks of faith. But outside, far above their hidden refuge, alarms blared. Satellites had tracked the Hydro surge. Soldiers of the Council were already moving, their orders clear: eliminate all witnesses. Kael didn't know yet what the Hydro had fully done to him. He didn't know what price would come with its power. But as boots thundered closer and the walls began to quake, one truth was undeniable. The first law of survival had been broken, and nothing would ever be the same. The pounding of boots grew louder, closer, like war drums echoing through the underground tunnels. The resistance froze, every face a canvas of fear. The Council's enforcers were coming. Kael stood in the center of the chamber, his skin still glowing faintly, his eyes burning with alien light. He clenched and unclenched his fists, testing the strange surge that pulsed within his veins. It felt like fire, but not destructive, alive, intelligent, as though the Hydro itself whispered instructions into his bones. Kael, Darren hissed, gripping his shoulder. We have to run. If they find us here, it's over. No, Kael's voice thundered, deeper than before, resonant as though layered with echoes. Running will not save us. Not anymore. The soldiers crashed through the steel door, their armor gleaming black, faces hidden behind emotionless masks. Plasma rifles leveled at the rebels. By order of the Council, their leader barked. Surrender the Hydro traitor and stand down. The rebels faltered, some already raising their hands in surrender. Against Council enforcers there was no chance. But Kael did not move. Instead, he stepped forward, placing himself between his people and the rifles aimed at their hearts. You want me? He said, his voice carrying a calm authority that stilled even the rebels. Then you'll have to take me. The soldiers fired. Bolts of plasma screamed through the air. Yet before they could strike, they bent, twisted, and shattered like glass against an invisible shield. Gasps erupted as the energy dissolved into sparks around Kael's outstretched hand. He hadn't planned it. The Hydro had reacted for him, flowing like a river of power that obeyed instinct rather than thought. What are you?" one soldier stammered, lowering his rifle. Kael stepped closer, eyes burning like suns. Awake! With a motion like drawing breath, he swept his arm forward. The air rippled, and a force unlike anything the rebels had seen slammed into the soldiers, hurling them across the chamber. Armor cracked, weapons skittered across the floor, and in the chaos, the resistance roared to life. Farmers swung shovels like axes, miners raised hammers, veterans reclaimed stolen rifles. For the first time, they weren't running. They were fighting. Kael barely noticed the chaos. Every heartbeat drew the Hydro deeper into his body. Every breath expanded his awareness. He could feel the life force of the rebels around him, the fear pulsing in the soldiers, even the vibrations in the stone walls. He was no longer just Kael Vera. He was something more, something that terrified him as much as it exhilarated him. Kael! Darren's voice snapped him back. We need to move. Reinforcements will be here any second. Kael hesitated, then nodded. Gather everyone. We can't stay underground anymore. The Hydro won't let us hide. As the rebels scrambled to escape through hidden tunnels, Kael lingered by one of the fallen soldiers. The man's mask was cracked, his terrified eyes staring up at Kael. You don't understand what you've done, the soldier whispered. You've doomed us all. Before Kael could answer, the soldier coughed blood and went still. Doomed us all. The words clung to Kael's mind like barbed hooks as he followed his people into the tunnels. They emerged hours later into the jagged wilderness beyond the city walls. The sky was crimson with the light of distant fires, smoke curling from watchtowers. For centuries, the council's rule had been absolute, enforced by fear of Hydro. But now Kael had consumed it, survived it, transformed. The rebels surrounded him, their eyes burning with the kind of hope they had not dared feel in years. "Your proof?" whispered Mara, a young woman clutching her brother's hand. "Proof they've been lying to us. If you lived, maybe we all can." The words struck Kael like lightning. Could they? Could anyone drink the Hydro and survive? He didn't know. But the thought terrified the council more than anything else. If the truth spread, their entire empire would crumble. Kael turned to the group, raising his voice. "Listen to me. They told us Hydro was death. But you saw it with your own eyes, it is life. They feared what it would make us because they knew. They knew we were never meant to be slaves. We were meant to evolve." The rebels erupted in cheers, their hope fierce enough to burn through their exhaustion. Yet even as Kael spoke, doubt gnawed at him. He could feel the Hydro pulsing in his veins, reshaping him. But to what end? Was this truly a gift or a trap? His vision blurred for a moment. A ripple of pain struck his chest, sudden and sharp, and for a heartbeat he thought he might collapse. But then it passed, leaving behind a chilling whisper that seemed to echo inside his skull. "Consume." Kael stiffened. The Hydro had spoken. "Kael?" Darren's hand gripped his arm. "You all right?" Kael forced a nod. "I'm fine." But he wasn't. Something was inside him, something alive, and it wanted more. Before he could dwell on it, a sound split the night sky, the hum of council ships. Floodlights cut across the terrain, sweeping over rocks and ruins. The rebels scattered for cover, panic rising again. "Move!" Darren barked. "They'll glass the whole valley if they find us." Kael stared at the approaching ships, feeling the Hydro surge within him. For the first time, he realized what it wanted. Not just survival, not just awakening. It wanted to spread. It wanted to consume more of humanity, to force their evolution whether they were ready or not. And in that moment, Kael understood the soldiers' dying words. The Hydro wasn't just power. It was hunger. The ships descended, weapons charging. The rebels looked to Kael, their unspoken plea clear. "Lead us, or we die." Kael raised his glowing hands, unsure whether he was their savior or their executioner. The sky lit up as the first plasma barrage rained down. The valley was scorched black by the council's attack, but by some miracle, the rebels had survived. Kael's shield, if that's what it was, had flared brighter than the sun, bending the plasma barrage back into the sky. The ground smoked, rocks shattered, and yet not a single rebel had fallen. They looked at him differently now, not with doubt, not even with hope, but with reverence. To them, Kael was no longer just a man. He was proof. But proof was dangerous. Proof inspired hunger. They fled deeper into the wilderness, a ragged band of 30 huddled together under ruined cliffs. Fires burned in the distance where council ships prowled, hunting, but exhaustion forced them to stop. As night fell, the group gathered around Kael, their whispers fevered. Mara, the young woman who had spoken before, stepped forward. Her hands shook, but her voice was steady. "If you survive the Hydro, then maybe we can too. Maybe that's what they've been hiding all along." Her words lit sparks in the darkness. Others joined in, voices rising like a tide. "Let us drink. We deserve the same chance. If he can do it, why not us?" Darren spat into the fire, his scarred face hard. "Don't be fools. We don't know what it did to him. He's glowing like a damn torch. For all we know, he'll burn out tomorrow. You think the council lied for centuries just for fun? No, they feared it because it's dangerous. And so is living under their boots." Mara snapped back. "I'd rather die drinking Hydro than waste away as their slave." A ripple of agreement spread through the rebels. Desperation had a way of disguising itself as courage. Kael listened, torn. The Hydro pulsed in his veins, urging him, whispering that it wanted to be consumed. He could feel it tugging at him, a river demanding to become an ocean. But was it truly salvation or infection? His eyes drifted to one figure on the edge of the group. A boy, no older than 17, skinny and hollow-eyed, clutching a rusted blade far too heavy for his frame. His name was Eric. He had lost his parents to the council's raids 2 winters ago. He had said little since joining the rebels, but now his gaze was fixed squarely on Kael. "If it can make us strong enough to fight back," Eric said softly, "then I'll drink it first." The crowd hushed. Kael's stomach twisted. This was not what he wanted. He had taken the Hydro as an experiment, a desperate gamble to expose truth. But now, standing in the ashes of survival, he realized something terrifying. His people weren't just following him. They wanted to become him. "No," Kael said firmly. "Not yet. I don't know what it's doing to me. Could be killing me slowly." It could. It could be the only way we live," Mara interrupted, her voice trembling but defiant. "If we wait, the council will find us and slaughter us all. But if Hydro changes us..." Eric's eyes glimmered with something deeper than fear, something closer to faith. He stepped forward, dropping his blade. "Give it to me, Kael. Let me be the proof." Kael hesitated, torn between the weight of leadership and the whisper in his blood. The Hydro inside him seemed to stir, as though it had heard Eric's plea. His veins burned hotter. His chest throbbed with need. The Hydro wanted this. It wanted to spread. But before Kael could speak, Darren stormed forward, shoving Eric back. "Are you all blind? You didn't see him collapse when he drank it. You didn't hear him scream. You think you're strong enough to survive that? No. This," he jabbed a finger at Kael, "is a curse, not a blessing. Then why is he still alive?" Eric shouted, shoving Darren back. His young voice cracked, but his fury was sharp. "Why did the council try to kill him the moment he drank it? Because they're afraid. They know Hydro isn't death. It's freedom." The argument boiled over. Rebels shouted, some siding with Eric, others with Darren. The fragile unity of their survival fractured under the weight of choice. Kael raised his hands, the glow of Hydro silencing them. "Enough!" The crowd stilled. Kael's chest rose and fell as he struggled for words. "Hydro, it's not just liquid. It's alive. It speaks to me. It wants to spread through us. But I don't know if that's a gift or a trap. If one of you drinks it now, you may not survive." His warning only fanned the fire. Mara's eyes burned with desperate conviction. "Then let us risk it. Better to die trying than live as prey." Before Kael could stop her, she lunged for his satchel where the stolen Hydro vials lay. Her hand closed on one, and before anyone could move, she pulled the cork free and drank. The liquid shimmered down her throat. She gasped, body arching, eyes blazing with pain. The rebels screamed, rushing forward, but Kael held them back with a wall of force that erupted instinctively from his hands. Mara convulsed, collapsing to the ground. Her skin flickered with light, veins glowing like molten glass. Her scream tore through the night, then cut off, abrupt, chilling. She lay still. The rebels froze in horror. Then, slowly, her fingers twitched. Her chest rose with a ragged breath, and her eyes snapped open, glowing with the same impossible fire as Kael's. The camp erupted into chaos, half in awe, half in terror. But Kael's heart sank. The Hydro inside him thrummed with hunger, pulsing harder, louder, as if celebrating its victory. It wasn't just satisfied with him. It wanted them all. And as the rebels stared at Mara's transformed body, one truth became undeniable. The thirst had begun. Eric's fingers trembled as he reached for the vial Mara had abandoned. His wide eyes glowed with desperation, not caution. The boy had seen her collapse, had heard her scream, but he had also seen her rise again, transformed. "If she can survive it," he whispered, "so can I." "Eric, don't!" Kael's voice thundered, but it was too late. The boy uncorked the vial and drank. For an instant, nothing happened. The rebels held their breath, eyes wide, some filled with dread, others with hunger. Eric wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, forcing a grin, as though mocking fear itself. Then the glow hit. Eric gasped, his body convulsing as Hydro tore through his veins. He dropped to the ground, writhing, light searing beneath his skin. His scream split the night, sharper and rawer than Mara's had been. His eyes rolled back, and then suddenly he went still. Kael surged forward, falling to his knees beside the boy. But the moment he touched Eric's shoulder, the world around him shattered. He was no longer in the scorched valley. He was standing in an ocean of liquid light. Hydro, endless, stretching in every direction like a living sea. The surface rippled with colors that had no name, each wave pulsing like a heartbeat. The air, or what passed for air, was thick with voices, whispers that slithered in and out of his mind. Consume, evolve, rise. Kael staggered, clutching his head. The voices weren't outside him. They were inside, resonating in his very blood. His breath came ragged, each inhale burning with the weight of eternity. And then he saw Eric. The boy floated a few paces away, suspended above the glowing tide. His body hung limp, but his eyes were open, staring in terror at the waves below. Kael! Eric's voice cracked, high and panicked. What is this? What's happening to me? Kael moved closer, the sea of Hydro supporting his steps like solid ground. He reached for the boy, but the liquid surged upward, tendrils of light wrapping around Eric's arms and legs, pulling him down. No! Kael roared, slashing his hand through the tendrils. A burst of energy exploded from his palm, shattering the strands of light. The Hydro recoiled, hissing like a wounded beast. And then it spoke. Not in whispers, but in a single unified voice that shook the very ocean. He is mine. Kael froze. The sound was vast, ancient, and terrifyingly calm. Who are you? He demanded, his voice cracking against the immensity of it. The ocean rippled, and a figure rose from its depths. Shapeless at first, then forming into a being of pure light, its outline shifting like water. Its face was a mirror, reflecting Kael's own features, but distorted, older, godlike. I am the flow, it said, the current of life, the test of worlds. You drank me, and so you hear me. He drinks me now, and so he joins me. Kael's chest tightened. You're alive. You're not just liquid. You're a consciousness. More than that, the flow answered. I am judgment. I am evolution. I am what decides whether a species is worthy to rise or to drown. Eric struggled against the tendrils, his cries raw with fear. Kael, help me. Don't let it take me. Kael lunged, grabbing the boy's arm, yanking him free. But as he did, the flow surged upward, towering above them like a storm given shape. You interfere, it thundered. You deny the choice. This isn't a choice, Kael shouted. You're forcing it on us. Every world must choose, the flow replied. Fear me and die, or consume me and rise. Your council chose fear. You chose consumption. Now your people must follow. The weak will break. The strong will awaken. That is the law of Hydro. Kael's mind reeled. This wasn't just survival. This was selection. A test disguised as terror. But why humanity? Why now? He turned back to Eric, whose body was glowing brighter, dangerously so. The boy screamed again, and Kael realized with horror that if he couldn't stabilize him here, in this dimension, Eric's body in the real world would die. Kael gritted his teeth, forcing the Hydro within him to respond. His veins burned, his chest felt like it would rip apart, but slowly, the light around his hands steadied. He pressed them against Eric's chest, pouring his own current into the boy. The flow roared in fury. You defy me, then kill me? Kael growled through clenched teeth. But you will not take him. For a heartbeat, the ocean stilled. Then, with a sound like thunder shattering glass, the tendrils snapped and retreated. Eric collapsed against Kael, gasping, his glow dimming to a faint shimmer. The flow's voice whispered one last time, soft but laced with menace. Every gift demands a price. Remember that, thief of fate. The ocean imploded. Kael jolted awake, lying on the scorched earth of the valley. Eric gasped beside him, alive, trembling, his eyes glowing faintly like Mara's. The rebels crowded around, murmuring in awe and fear. He survived, one whispered. They both did, another said. Kael staggered to his feet, his chest still burning from the flow's words. The rebels looked to him now not just as proof, but as a leader of something much larger, something divine. But Kael knew the truth. This wasn't divinity. This was a test, a trap. And Hydro, the flow, would not stop until every last one of them had made the choice. Eric's trembling hand clutched his sleeve. Kael, what did it show you? Kael stared at the boy, at Mara, at the eager faces of the rebels who now burned with thirst. It showed me, Kael said quietly, that it doesn't just want us to drink it. It wants us to sacrifice everything to keep it. And as the night deepened, Kael could almost hear the flow whispering again, patient and hungry. Consume. The council's retaliation came at dawn. The rebels had barely survived the night, huddled in ruined caves, haunted by whispers of the flow, when the horizon lit up with fire. Warships descended from the clouds like predatory birds, their engines howling, their shadows swallowing the ground. Darren spotted them first, his scarred jaw tightening. They've sent the machines. The rebels stiffened. Everyone knew the stories. The machines weren't soldiers, they were exterminators, built for one purpose: to erase uprisings before they spread. Entire villages had been turned to ash beneath their iron claws. If the council had unleashed them now, it meant only one thing. They were afraid. Kael stood on the cliff's edge, watching the ships land. His veins still glowed faintly, the Hydro restless inside him, whispering to act, to consume, to unleash. He had resisted its hunger through the night, but now, staring at the enemy's war machines, he wondered if resisting was a luxury he could no longer afford. Behind him, Mara adjusted her rifle, the glow in her eyes still fierce, defiant. "We can fight them," she said. "I feel it in my blood. The Hydro wants us to. I can move faster, aim sharper. I'm not the same anymore." Eric nodded, though his hands shook as he gripped his blade. "It changed me too. I feel stronger, but it's like it's pushing me to do more. To drink again." Kael's chest tightened. He could sense it too, the flow's hunger pulsing in every transformed rebel. They weren't just gaining power. They were being urged toward something deeper, something darker. The ground shook. The machines had arrived. They emerged from the dust like giants, towering constructs of steel and plasma, each one armed with weapons designed to tear cities apart. Their footsteps cracked the earth, their glowing eyes scanning for life. The rebels scattered for cover as the first beam split the cliffs, vaporizing stone into dust. Screams rang out. "Run!" Darren bellowed, shoving Mara behind a boulder as another blast scorched the ground. "We can't fight this." But Kael didn't run. The Hydro surged in his veins, screaming to be unleashed. He stepped forward, raising his hands. The air rippled, bending, and then, like water breaking free from a dam, an invisible wave slammed into the first machine. The impact was cataclysmic. The machine staggered, metal shrieking as its armor buckled inward. Sparks exploded across its frame, and then, with a sound like thunder, it collapsed into the dust. The rebels gasped, stunned into silence. Kael fell to one knee, chest heaving. The strike had drained him, leaving his body trembling. But the Hydro pulsed in triumph, whispering its satisfaction. More, it urged. Consume. Unleash. The remaining machines roared, their weapons locking onto him. Mara leapt from cover, firing into their sensors. Her bullets sparked uselessly against the armor, but her movements were faster, sharper than human reflex. Plasma beams cut the air around her, yet she dodged with inhuman grace. Her laughter, wild, fierce, echoed across the battlefield. "This is what they fear," she shouted. "This is what Hydro makes us." Eric charged beside her, his blade glowing faintly as though infused with the flow itself. He slashed at a machine's leg, sparks flying. The rebels, emboldened, poured out of cover, firing, striking, fighting with a desperation that bordered on madness. Kael rose, torn between awe and dread. The Hydro wasn't just awakening powers, it was awakening hunger. Mara fought like she craved more, her eyes alight with fury. Eric's strikes grew reckless, his grin unsettling. The flow was pushing them, urging them to burn brighter, faster, even if it meant burning out. The battle raged. One by one, the machines fell, not easily, not without cost, but they fell. The rebels moved like predators unleashed, their Hydro-born strength turning desperation into dominance. When the last machine crashed into the dust, the valley fell silent but for the rebels' ragged breaths. They had done it. They had destroyed the Council's greatest weapons. For the first time in centuries, rebels had won. The group erupted in cheers, voices hoarse but triumphant. Some laughed, others wept. Mara raised her rifle high, her glow fierce. "We are no longer prey," she shouted. "We are the flood." The rebels roared their agreement, chanting, crying, voices rising into the dawn. But Kael did not join them. He stood apart, staring at the smoking ruins of the machines. His body trembled, not from exhaustion, but from the whispers inside him. The flow was louder now, its voice a chorus inside his skull. This is only the beginning. Kael clenched his fists, fighting against the urge to surrender. He could feel it pulling at him, deeper, demanding more sacrifices, more consumption. Every victory fed it. Every life risked for Hydro bound them closer to its will. And then, as the rebels celebrated, Kael felt something else. A ripple of energy on the horizon. His glowing eyes narrowed. It wasn't the Council. It wasn't the machines. It was Hydro. The flow wasn't waiting for them to come. It was spreading on its own, seeping into rivers, wells, even the rain. Humanity wouldn't just stumble upon Hydro, they would be surrounded by it. Kael's breath caught as he realized the terrifying truth. They hadn't unleashed a weapon. They had unleashed a flood. The battlefield still smoked. The shattered husks of the machines lay scattered across the valley, sparks hissing from broken limbs. The rebels, bloodied, exhausted, trembling, stood victorious for the first time in living memory. But the silence that followed was not peace. It was dread. Kael watched them, his chest tight. Mara laughed as she tore a glowing power core from a machine's chest, holding it aloft like a trophy. Eric's blade still hummed faintly with Hydro energy, his grin wide, his young eyes burning with something dangerously close to obsession. Others shouted in triumph, beating their chests, their fear replaced with intoxication. They weren't just fighting anymore. They were reveling. The flow's whispers slithered through Kael's mind, louder than ever. Yes, spread, consume, burn brighter, burn all. Kael clenched his fists trying to block it out. He had seen what Hydro was. It wasn't merely a gift. It was a test, or worse, a parasite. It offered strength, but demanded submission. And every rebel who drank it became less themselves, more something else. Kael? Darren's voice snapped him from his thoughts. The scarred veteran approached, his rifle slung across his back, his face grim. "We need to talk." Kael followed him into the shadow of a broken cliff, away from the others. "You see it, don't you?" Darren said quietly. "They're changing. Mara. The boy. Even you. You think you're leading them, but it's the Hydro that's leading you." Kael said nothing. Darren's eyes narrowed. "You want the truth? I'd rather die under the Council's boot than live as a puppet for whatever that thing inside you is." Kael finally spoke, his voice low, haunted. "You're not wrong. It's alive. It's pushing us towards something. It wants to spread. I felt it." "Then end it," Darren said coldly, "before it consumes all of us." Kael's stomach churned. End it? Could Hydro even be destroyed? And if he tried, would it destroy him in return? Before he could answer, a shout cut through the camp. "Council scouts!" The rebels scrambled for weapons, eyes scanning the ridgeline. Figures appeared, half a dozen soldiers, unarmored, carrying only flags of truce. The rebels hesitated, confused. Kael stepped forward cautiously, raising his hand for silence. The lead soldier, a gaunt man with hollow eyes, dropped his weapon in the dust. "We are not here to fight," he called out. "We are here to warn you." The rebels murmured in disbelief. Mara scoffed, raising her rifle. "You expect us to believe that?" The soldier shook his head. "Believe what you want, but the council is not your enemy. Not anymore." His gaze locked on Kael. "Hydro is." The words sliced through the rebels like knives. "What do you mean?" Kael demanded. The soldier's hollow eyes darkened. "We kept the truth hidden because we had no choice. Hydro isn't a weapon, it's a contagion. It doesn't stop once it takes root. Entire worlds before yours consumed it, and every one of them is gone. Extinct. That's why we obeyed. That's why we feared. We weren't protecting power. We were protecting survival." The rebels erupted in shouts. Denial, fury, fear. Mara's glowing eyes blazed as she aimed her rifle at the man. "Lies. You just want us weak again. Afraid again. Do you?" The soldier shot back. "Look at yourself. Do you feel more human? Or less?" Mara hesitated, her hands trembling, but the hydro in her veins pulsed stronger. "I feel alive!" she screamed, pulling the trigger. The shot rang out. The soldier fell dead. Kael's stomach dropped. The camp descended into chaos. Rebels shouting, some praising Mara, others horrified. Eric stepped forward, his voice cutting through the noise. He was wrong. Hydro didn't kill those worlds, it freed them. And now it's freeing us. The boy's glow intensified, his eyes wild. "We shouldn't hide it. We should spread it. Every human should drink. Every one of us should rise." A murmur spread through the rebels, dangerously persuasive. Some nodded. Some reached for Kael's satchel of stolen vials. "Enough!" Kael roared, unleashing a shockwave that silenced the camp. His glowing eyes scanned their faces. "You don't understand. Hydro isn't a gift. It's a chain. It's testing us, forcing us to choose, but every choice we make feeds it. If we all drink, we're not free. We're slaves to it." The rebels stared at him, torn. And then the betrayal struck. A hand clamped down on his shoulder. Cold steel pressed against his temple. It was Darren. "I warned you," the veteran growled. His rifle was steady, his scarred face hard with resolve. "I won't let this thing use you to damn us all." The rebels froze, stunned. Kael didn't move, his heart pounding. "Darren," he whispered, "don't do this." "I have to," Darren said, his finger tightening on the trigger. Better to kill one man than watch the whole world burn. The hydro inside Kael surged in panic, whispering furiously. Survive. Consume. Strike. Kael fought it, clenching his fists. If he let it act, Darren would die in an instant. If he resisted, he might die instead. But before either choice could be made, the night sky split open with a roar. A council mothership descended, blotting out the stars. Its voice boomed across the valley, amplified by machines. "Rebels, hydro bearers, hear us. You have unleashed what should never have been touched. And now, you will face judgment." The ground quaked as the ship's core began to glow. Darren's rifle pressed harder to Kael's skull. The rebels screamed in terror. And the flow whispered, louder than ever. "Choose, sacrifice, or drown. Choose, sacrifice, or drown." The words of the flow pulsed like thunder through Kael's veins as the council's mothership hovered above, its glowing core brightening until it looked like a second sun in the night sky. The ground trembled beneath its power, and the rebels' cheers of victory dissolved into terrified screams. Darren's rifle pressed cold and hard against Kael's temple, his scarred hands steady despite the chaos. "This ends here," he growled, his voice cracking with conviction. "Better one bullet now than a billion lives tomorrow." Kael's chest heaved. He could feel hydro surging inside him, begging to be unleashed, promising survival, strength, and dominion. But he also felt Darren's fear, the desperate human truth buried beneath the soldier's hardened exterior. The mothership's speakers boomed again. Hydro-bearers, you have contaminated yourselves. You are no longer human. Prepare for eradication. Around Kael, the rebels scattered like insects, some aiming weapons at the sky, others falling to their knees in surrender. Mara raised her rifle defiantly, her veins glowing with hydro light. "Let them come!" she shouted, firing wild shots upward that fizzled uselessly against the ship's shields. The flow whispered inside Kael, smoother now, almost soothing. "Let go. Merge fully. You can save them, but only if you surrender." His mind swirled with the impossible choices. Surrender to Hydro and risk becoming its puppet. Resist and die beneath Darren's rifle. Or stand still and watch humanity crushed under the Council's final strike. Eric's young voice broke through the madness. "Kael, what do we do?" His eyes glowed like molten silver, brimming with faith and terror. Kael's heart clenched. This wasn't just about him anymore. The boy, the rebels, even Darren, they were all waiting. Humanity itself hung in the balance. And suddenly, Kael knew. He spoke, his voice carrying with unnatural force. "We don't fight the Council. We don't obey Hydro. We decide for ourselves." Darren's grip faltered just slightly, confusion flickering across his face. "Decide?" "Yes," Kael said, his eyes locking on his old comrades. "If Hydro is a test, then this is the answer. Not fear, not surrender. Choice." He turned inward, facing the torrent of the flow within him. It writhed like a storm, tendrils of light stabbing through his thoughts. "Consume. Merge. Spread." "No," Kael whispered. "Not as your vessel. As myself." And then he drank it all. The Hydro inside him erupted, burning through his body with the heat of 1,000 suns. His scream split the night, half agony, half triumph. Light engulfed him, brighter than the mothership's core. His skin cracked with glowing fissures, his bones vibrating with inhuman power. For an instant he thought he was dissolving, that Hydro had won, that he was nothing but another spark in its eternal hunger. But then he pushed back. He anchored himself with memories. His mother's laugh, the rebel songs, Eric's hopeful eyes, even Darren's gruff warnings. He clung to them like chains of steel. He wasn't just Hydro. He wasn't just human. He was both, and neither would rule him. The light around him stabilized, swirling into a sphere that radiated warmth instead of destruction. The mothership faltered, its weapons dimming as if confused. The Council's voice cracked for the first time. What are you?" Kael rose into the air, suspended in his sphere of light. His voice thundered, amplified by something greater than himself. "I am Kael. I am choice, and I will not let you or Hydro decide our fate." With a sweep of his hand, the sphere expanded, washing over the battlefield, over the rebels, even over Darren. Instead of consuming them, it stripped away Hydro's whispers, leaving only strength without compulsion, power without chains. Mara gasped as the glow faded from her veins, but she still felt stronger than she had ever been. Eric fell to his knees, tears streaming as the burden of Hydro's hunger lifted from him. Darren lowered his rifle, stunned, his eyes wide. The mothership shuddered. Beams of light splintered across its surface as if it were cracking under the weight of Kael's defiance. With a final roar, it exploded in a storm of fire and ash, scattering across the night sky like dying stars. Silence followed. Real silence. No whispers, no threats, only the rasping breaths of those who remained. Kael descended slowly, the glow fading from his body until he was only a man again. His knees buckled, and he collapsed to the earth. Darren rushed forward, catching him before he hit the ground. For the first time in years, the hardened soldier's eyes shone with something like respect. You did it." Kael's lips curled into a faint smile. "No," he whispered, his voice raw. "We did." The rebels gathered around him, their faces pale but their eyes alive. Hope, fragile yet fierce, flickered among them. But as Kael closed his eyes, drifting on the edge of unconsciousness, he heard one last whisper from the flow. This was only the beginning. Epilogue. When Kael awoke days later, the world was quieter, freer. The Council's armies were gone, their machines silent. The rebels had become leaders, not outlaws. Hydro still existed in the rivers and streams, but it no longer whispered. It simply waited. Kael looked at Eric, Mara, and even Darren standing beside him, and he knew the truth. The test wasn't over. But for the first time, humanity wasn't afraid. They had consumed Hydro, and in doing so, they had consumed their fear. And whatever came next, they would face it together.